It was a dark and stormy night down a forestry road, and I had one of the most terrifying experiences I'd ever had living in a van. I had finally gotten out of Port Angeles, which was a nightmare all on its own. I will share that in coming videos. But a storm had rolled in and I was behind on editing, so I decided to go settle in for a couple nights down a forestry road between Port Angeles and Forks, Washington. I drove a couple of miles down the forest road and found a spot to tuck in just before dark. I got settled in with Frank and I had dinner, and I was hanging out in my van reading iOverlander reviews from campsites in the area and further up ahead on my travels when I came across this review. There's a moderator note that says, "Warning, exclamation mark, thefts and vandalism reported in this area. Please use caution." So I read further and I read, "Big warning here. A close friend who is the only licensed mortician in the county implored me to stay away from the Forest Service roads as both Port Angeles and Forks are heavily impacted by drugs. Apparently, there are roving bands of junkies who predate upon boondockers. If you are a solo woman, which I am, I beg you to stay away, and all others must be capable of handling these bandits." So at this point, it is completely dark out. It is raining. It is windy. I am tired. And I had been dealing with ongoing engine issues, which, as I mentioned, we'll get to in a future video. So I just really didn't feel like going anywhere. So I had the van all locked down and I settled in for the night. I told myself, it's mid-October. It's not good condition for roaming bands of junkie bandits. And I figured, chances are I'm pretty safe. So the night goes on and I'm watching YouTube videos downloaded on my phone. There was bad service there. Really bad service, actually. I didn't have any service in my van. If I sat in the front seat, I could get a little bit of 1 bar from time to time. And so I was watching a video I had downloaded before because I have YouTube Premium. And I don't tend to watch a lot of true crime, but for some reason, I decided to watch a video about Jack the Ripper, which maybe wasn't the best idea considering I was already just feeling a little tiny bit on edge from the warning I had read from iOverlander. That warning was attached to a campsite that was only 1.5 miles down the road from where I am, closer to the highway. I had gone further out, and I had chose that area before reading all those reviews. And so I watched this video, Jack the Ripper, and the video ends, and I hear this horrible scratching noise from what sounds like the side of my door. And I am freaked. Before the noise can even fully end, I just yell, "What are you doing?" Like this deep roar, guttural, trying to sound as mean and scary as possible. Why I yelled, "What are you doing?" I don't know. That's just what came out of me. And right after I finished yelling that, I turned off the light in my van so it was dark in here so anything outside couldn't see in. And I quickly grabbed my bear mace and a knife. A big knife. Big knife, okay? And my bear spray, which is the extra large can for grizzly bears. And I'm sitting here in the dark, heart pounding, ready. I am ready. I am just, whatever happens, I'm gonna be on it. I'm gonna fight for my life. And I slowly let my eyes adjust, and I'm peeking through the curtains, and I don't see anything. It is dark out. I don't see any lights. I don't notice any bodies moving around. I don't hear any vehicles, and my heart's pounding. Heart's pounding. But I should have noted that Frank had no reaction. And so I'm trying to calm myself down because, first of all, being in a heightened state is not the best state to be in, to react to an emergency situation. So I'm trying to calm myself down. I'm like, okay, Amanda, it's windy. Maybe a branch fell from a tree and scraped down the side. You know, there's a hole in the body. Maybe like a mouse got in and it's like in the lower quarter panel and it sounded loud. Maybe there was a raccoon in the wheel well, and I'm talking through all these possible things that could be completely harmless so that like I can feel safer. But of course, I've already had like a rush of adrenaline, heart's pounding, and I'm scared. I was really, really, really scared. Like it just sounded like a clamoring of nails on the driver's door. Like, and so I'm talking myself down, and I'd basically come to the conclusion, it probably wasn't a human, and I wasn't willing to go outside to like check for branches or anything like that, to like look for clues about what this noise was. I said, I am not leaving my van until daylight. And I was honestly quite freaked out that it was potentially like a Sasquatch, which I know not everyone believes in, but that's what made sense to me in the moment, because I just felt like this huge feeling of fear, and the noise had just been so absolutely terrifying. And there was no sign that there was a human around. Like, it just wouldn't make sense that there'd be roaming bands of junkies in the middle of the night. This is like midnight on a rainy, stormy night, way out in the forest with no lights on. And so I fully expected to be up all night. I didn't expect to get any sleep. I was so unsettled. It took me over an hour to be willing to turn the light in my van back on. I've spent almost 11 years full time in my van now, sleeping down forestry roads, and just hadn't really been in my van feeling that scared, possibly ever. I was laying in bed with these next to me and my InReach on hand because there was no phone service. If something happened, then I could call emergency. And after a couple hours, I did manage to fall asleep. I wake up the next morning and I go outside, and there's no branches. And there's absolutely nothing that I can see to explain that horrible noise that I had heard that set me off. So I take some time to think about the order of events. Okay, I'm in my van. I'm watching downloaded videos on YouTube, which autoplay from one video to the next. This noise was right after I finished watching a video on Jack the Ripper. And I was playing it on a Bluetooth speaker that I had sitting over here, which was the direction the noise came from. And so I go and I check the video that autoplayed after Jack the Ripper, because I hadn't actually been looking at my phone.
Unpacking by farm.
Yeah. It was a video about a guy going on a canoe route that starts out with a dark screen, the camera in his trunk, and him opening the trunk and metal sounds and creaking. And I had had one of the most terrifying nights I could ever remember. And it was just a silly autoplay of a video. There was nothing there. There was no threat. But because it was a dark and stormy night, I had read that comment about scary roving bands of junkies. And I had just watched a true crime video. I was primed to be scared. And that just really goes to show that sometimes things we perceive to be scary are actually nothing at all, and it's just a matter of the conditioning that we've exposed ourselves to that makes something seem scary that isn't actually. So everything was fine, everything was okay. So yeah, I feel pretty silly about getting as scared as I was, but it was a good test in my, response tactics and prepared, and I was pretty happy about how fast I had some defense on me, and yeah, it just goes to show too that like Frank didn't react. I probably didn't need to react. And I really only felt scared because the other things I had been reading and watching leading up to it, I ended up spending the next day and the next night there. No problem. And all is well. So, thank you for tuning in to this short little story time video. And in the next one, I will share my less than ideal time in Port Angeles. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.